Last year's Galaxy Note 7 had the potential to be 2016's best phone of the year, but a dangerous hardware defect resulted in Samsung quickly pulling it off the market. The Note 8 marks the series' triumphant return, but at nearly $1,000, it's one of Samsung's most expensive phones yet. Find out if it's worth your money in our Galaxy Note 8 review. From price to design to features and everything in between, the best word to describe the Note 8 is excessive. It boasts a massive 6.3-inch QHD+ AMOLED display, the biggest Samsung has ever put on a phone, that's curved on both sides and takes on the elongated 18.5:9 aspect ratio of the Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus from earlier this year. It gets unbelievably bright, 1200 nits to be exact, and the curved design helps Samsung fit a large screen on a relatively small body, but at 195 grams it's still a behemoth of a phone. All that mass pays off in features though. Samsung packed just about every feature imaginable into the Note 8. There's wireless charging, IP68 water and dust resistance, NFC and MST for Samsung Pay, Bluetooth 5.0, Qualcomm Quick Charge, and microSD expandability, to name just a few. Oh, and maybe most important, there's still a headphone jack too. Just don't expect any fancy DAC like the one LG is putting in its flagships lately. On the Galaxy S8, I loved the Infinity display for making such a huge screen so manageable. On the Note 8 though, while this is probably about as manageable as a 6.3-inch screen can be, it's just not the same. The phone is so tall that it's almost impossible to reach the notification panel without having to adjust your grip or use your other hand. The Galaxy S8 made this a little easier by letting you swipe down on the fingerprint sensor to pull down notifications, but the added height of the Note 8 pushes the fingerprint sensor further away, so even that can be a challenge. I've got pretty average to small hands, so your experience may differ from mine, but I'm someone who typically likes phablets, and I'm not the only one who's taken issue with this phone's one-handed usability. But Note owners already know that the Galaxy Note 8 isn't about one-handed usability. From the very beginning, this series has been a two-handed operation, holding the S Pen in your dominant hand and the phone in the other, and using it that way transforms the Note experience. Maybe it's just a mental thing, but I feel more productive when I'm using the S Pen. Whether I'm using it to sign a legal document or write the entire script for this video, which I did by the way, I'm not worrying about trying to reach the top of the screen or accidentally touching the wrong buttons. The S Pen is far more precise than a finger, and I love the floating features like scrolling and having a cursor. The floating dock is still here too, with a few new tricks up its sleeve. You can quickly translate words by hovering over them now, and Live Message lets you send a drawing or note to your friends as an animated GIF. I get that the S Pen isn't for everybody, but it's always been my favorite part of using a Galaxy Note, and it's quickly becoming the only differentiator between it and the Galaxy S line. There's always been a stigma in the Android community against Samsung software. It's too bloated, it slows down over time, it isn't as clean and polished as stock Android, and while there is still some truth in that, Samsung's version of Android is better than ever, and it might even be the best version of Android for most people. Now, before the stock purists out there start typing away, I'm with you. I'll take the software on a Pixel or a OnePlus 5 any day over a Galaxy. But while it might not be as clean, the Galaxy Note 8 just does more. I like not having a button for my app drawer since Samsung software lets me just swipe up or down on the home screen to see all of my apps, but if gestures aren't your thing, you can just add the button right back. You don't like how bright Samsung's UI is or the colors of the app icons? Throw on a theme. If you hate seeing doubled software like Galaxy apps next to the Play Store or Samsung's internet browser next to Chrome, pick the ones that you like and hide the rest. When you're done with cleanup, you'll start to notice a lot of really useful features tucked into this phone. I've never been big on Apps Edge, but now that you can pair apps together to instantly jump into split screen view, it's actually really convenient. Samsung Pay is a great way to use mobile payments on terminals that don't typically accept them, and Secure Folder keeps your private information safe, even allowing you to make duplicate versions of apps to use with different accounts. Now, a lot of users will be frustrated by the Bixby button under the volume rocker. It's a redundant feature compared to Google Assistant, and the button placement makes accidental presses far too easy. But now that Bixby Voice is available in most markets, it's a pretty capable assistant, and more importantly, it provides users an option in areas where Google services aren't available. Still, a lot of people will find Bixby to be more trouble than it's worth, so pro tip, you can disable the Bixby key now thanks to a recent update to Bixby Home. Alright, so Bixby might not be all that popular just yet, but you know what is? Dual cameras. The Note 8 is Samsung's first phone to join the bandwagon, opting for a secondary 2x zoom lens rather than the wide-angle or monochrome sensors of some of its competitors. It's also the first dual camera setup that we've seen for optical image stabilization in both lenses. That's a really big deal when you're using the zoom lens, and whether you're taking a photo or a video, you'll notice the difference when you're comparing shots with a friend's iPhone 7 Plus or OnePlus 5. Of course, Samsung wasn't going to offer dual lenses without also offering portrait mode, or live focus as they call it, which uses both lenses in tandem to create an artificial bokeh effect. It's pretty hit or miss, and especially in darker environments, you'll wind up disappointed more often than not, but it looks great when it works, and even when it doesn't, Samsung still saves the original image from both cameras as a fallback. I love this feature, and the fact that you can adjust the blur after the picture is taken, and because of it, I've been taking a lot more of these kinds of photos than I ever did with my iPhone. Now, one of our biggest concerns with the Note 8 from the very beginning was battery life. Explosions and recalls aside, last year's Note 7 just didn't have the longevity we've come to expect from a Note, and this year's model has a smaller battery, so things weren't looking good on paper. Thankfully, the more power-efficient chipset in the Note 8 helps it last longer than the Note 7 did, and it should be able to make it through a full workday without a problem. On average, I got between 4 and 5 hours of screen on time. So, is this phone really worth $1,000? Well, that'll ultimately vary from person to person, but it's certainly one of the most attractive phones on the market. It packs just about every feature under the sun, and wields two of the best cameras you'll find, along with a stylus that no other phone can match. The headphone audio output is nothing special, and there aren't many pro controls for video. You'll want to look towards the LG V30 for that. But for everything else, the Galaxy Note 8 is a knockout success, and while I'm not sure I'd be willing to spend a month and a half's rent on one, especially with the Pixel 2 and other great phones on the way, the financing options offered through carriers definitely make it tempting.